Welcome to the AEN Stories channel. They say love blinds you, but what they don't say is how betrayal makes you doubt your own eyes. My wife, Claire, was always the kind of woman people described as warm. She laughed with her whole body. She hugged like she meant it. For years, that warmth was my anchor. And then, slowly, it became my prison. It started with shadows, little absences. I'll be late tonight. Don't wait up. Work is insane right now. Nothing unusual except the way she said it. Casually, like she knew I wouldn't question her. And for a while I didn't. Because why would I? We had a decade together, a mortgage, a life. But then the gaslighting began. One night I asked if she could put her phone down while we ate. She laughed. Actually laughed at me. "You're paranoid," she said. "Since when do you care if I answer a text?" It hit me like a slap. Because she was right. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have cared. But 6 months ago, she didn't flinch when I reached for her phone. 6 months ago, she didn't change her lock code. From there, the pattern grew sharper. Whenever I asked a question, any question, she flipped it back on me. "Why do you always assume the worst? Do you have any idea how exhausting it is being with someone so suspicious? You're projecting, not me." And the worst part? I believed her. I believed that maybe I was broken. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was inventing cracks in something still solid. Until the voicemail. It was a Tuesday night. Claire had gone upstairs early, claiming a migraine. Her phone buzzed on the counter. And for once, it didn't lock right away. I don't know why. Maybe she was distracted. Maybe the universe finally threw me a bone. But when I swiped, there it was. A new voicemail. I pressed play, and his voice filled the kitchen. "I miss you already. Tonight was... God, Claire, I don't know how much longer I can keep waiting like this. Call me when you can." I replayed it 3 times. The voice wasn't mine. The words weren't mine. The intimacy wasn't mine. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. That was the moment the gaslighting ended. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't projecting. I was betrayed. But here's the thing. I didn't confront her. Not right away. Instead, I slipped the phone back exactly where she left it, then walked upstairs like nothing happened. She was curled up in bed, blanket pulled tight, eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. Pretending, like always. I lay down next to her, staring at the ceiling, my pulse roaring in my ears. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel warmth lying beside her. I felt cold, ice cold, because now I knew the truth. And once you know, you can't unknow. The next morning, I began my own act. I smiled at breakfast. I kissed her goodbye. I asked about her day. And every second, I was cataloging her lies. I tracked her late nights. I checked the mileage on her car. I took photos of receipts, texts, little crumbs she left behind when she thought I was still blind. Within a week, I had enough evidence to ruin her. Within 2 weeks, I had enough to destroy him too. But I wasn't ready yet. Because betrayal is like a slow fire. You don't just put it out. You let it burn until there's nothing left but ash. And I wanted Claire to choke on every breath of smoke. Once you know the truth, every detail becomes a weapon. Claire thought I was still in the fog, still doubting myself, still believing her excuses. But I wasn't. I was awake now, sharper than I had ever been. And for the first time, I stopped asking why and started asking how. How long had it been going on? How deep was the betrayal? And most importantly, how could I use it against her? The first move was patience. Betrayers thrive on urgency. They push you into emotional reactions because your rage keeps their lies hidden. But I didn't give Claire the satisfaction. I smiled. I listened. I even laughed at her stupid work stories, the ones she told while her eyes flicked down to her buzzing phone every 5 minutes. I became her perfect husband again, calm, distracted, predictable. But inside, I was documenting everything. Every late-night conference call that ended with her sneaking out at 9:45. Every charge on the credit card for restaurants we'd never been to together. Every mile added to her odometer when she claimed she hadn't left the office. I bought a cheap notebook and filled it like a detective's case file. Dates, times, locations, even the way she smiled when she read his texts. That smile cut deeper than any blade. And the strangest part? The more evidence I gathered, the calmer I became. Because once you stop trying to save the lie, you start preparing to end it. Then came the test. One evening, Claire announced she had a team dinner. I knew she was lying. Her calendar had no such entry, and she hadn't bothered to invent a name this time. She grabbed her red coat, kissed me quickly on the cheek, and rushed out the door. I waited 10 minutes, then I followed. Her car was easy to track. She drove across town to a boutique hotel, the kind with ivy climbing the walls and valet parking out front. I parked down the street and watched as she met him at the entrance. Tall, expensive suit, the kind of smug grin that told me he thought he'd already won. I watched his hand slide onto her back as they disappeared inside. I clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. But I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took photos. Dozens of them, time-stamped, clear, undeniable. By the time they came out 2 hours later, laughing like teenagers, I already had everything I needed. Back home, Claire walked in with that fake exhaustion she always wore after seeing him. She dropped her bag, yawned, and said, "Long night." "You wouldn't have enjoyed it." I smiled, poured her a glass of water, and kissed her forehead. She had no idea that 2 hours earlier I'd been parked 20 feet away, watching her betray every vow she'd ever made. That's when I knew the gaslighting was over. It was time to flip the script. The next morning, I tried my first move, a small one. I casually asked, "Hey, how was the team dinner last night?" She didn't even blink. "Fine." "Boring, actually." I nodded. "Funny, because your office posted on LinkedIn yesterday about the budget summit, and all your teammates were tagged. Except you." For the first time in months, she hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. Then she rolled her eyes. "You're stalking my work page now?" God, you're so insecure. But I saw it. The flicker, the crack. And in that crack I planted the seed. I'm not as blind as you think. From that day forward, I shifted. I stopped being passive. I started being tactical. I set up a private bank account and redirected my paycheck. I made digital copies of every important document: deeds, insurance, joint accounts. I even quietly changed the locks on the storage unit she didn't know I still paid for. And I kept smiling, kept kissing her forehead, kept letting her think she was winning. Because betrayal isn't just about breaking a heart. It's about control. And little by little, I was taking control back. Then came the night she finally slipped. It was a Saturday. Claire told me she was going to a friend's birthday. She dressed up more than usual. Red dress, gold earrings, perfume that clung to her skin like smoke. I didn't ask questions. I just waved as she left. But 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message was short. "You don't know me, but you should check room 214 at the Monroe Hotel tonight, around 8. I stared at the screen, pulse racing. A setup? A trap? Or was this someone trying to give me the truth? At 7:55, I parked near the Monroe Hotel. By 8:10, my entire world tilted on its axis. Because when Claire walked into that lobby, she wasn't just with him. She was with someone else, too. Someone I recognized. And that's when I realized the betrayal went deeper than I ever imagined. The Monroe Hotel had that slick, polished look. Dim golden lighting, jazz playing too softly to matter, couples moving like shadows through the lobby. I stayed in my car, tucked behind a line of SUVs, watching through the windshield. At 8:10 sharp, Claire walked in. Red dress, gold earrings, her smile rehearsed but radiant. She looked like she belonged to someone else's life, a glamorous one, full of secrets. Then he appeared, the same man I'd followed before. Suit sharp enough to cut glass, hair slicked back, hand reaching for her waist like it already owned her. But he wasn't the surprise. The surprise was the person who walked in just a few steps behind them. My brother. I almost laughed, the kind of hollow laugh that sounds more like choking. My brother Michael, the one I trusted, the one who toasted us at our wedding, the one who swore family meant loyalty above all else. There he was, greeting Claire's lover like they were old friends. No, not friends, conspirators. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even blink as the three of them slipped into the elevator together, talking casually, like this was normal. Normal. As if betraying me had become a weekly dinner plan. I stayed in that car for 2 hours, rage boiling, hands trembling against the steering wheel, every instinct screamed to run inside, to tear the world apart until I got answers. But then I realized, if I stormed in now, I'd lose everything. Anger exposes you. Patience exposes them. So I stayed quiet. I let them think they were safe. When Claire came home that night, she slipped her heels off at the door, humming softly. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just shared a hotel room with my wife's lover and my own brother. I wanted to throw up. Instead, I poured her a glass of wine and asked about her friend's birthday. She lied, smoothly, effortlessly. And I nodded along, storing every word, every inflection, every detail she'd forget to cover later. Because now it wasn't just betrayal, it was war. The next few weeks were torture, but I played my role to perfection. I smiled, I cooked, I listened. And behind that mask, I gathered every piece of evidence I could. I followed Michael too, watched him slip into meetings with that same man. Learned his name, Daniel Cross, an executive at Claire's firm, rich, connected, arrogant, and it all clicked. Claire wasn't just having an affair, she was positioning herself, trading loyalty for leverage, using my brother's connections to climb Daniel's ladder. It wasn't about love, it was about power. And if I was going to bring her down, I had to strike not at her heart. She didn't have one left, but at the empire she thought she was building. Phase 1. Exposure. I printed the photos. Claire with Daniel outside the hotel, Claire laughing in the cafe, Claire disappearing into the guest house, Michael shaking Daniel's hand. I mailed copies anonymously to Daniel's wife, to his company's board, to Michael's fiancée. Within a week, the cracks began to show. Daniel stopped picking Claire up at the corner. Michael stopped answering her late-night texts. And Claire? She grew restless, snapping at me over trivial things, as if she could feel the ground shifting under her feet. But she didn't suspect me. Not yet. Phase 2. Removal. I drained the joint account, quietly moved my savings into a separate bank. I transferred the lease of our apartment to her name only. The bills, too. Every safety net she thought she had. Gone, overnight. She didn't notice at first. She was too busy texting, too busy chasing shadows of men who no longer returned her calls. But eventually, reality hit. One morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table staring at her phone. She looked pale, smaller somehow. She whispered, "He's not answering." I asked, "Who?" She snapped, "Work." And I smiled into my coffee. Phase 3, revelation. I planned it for weeks. The right night, the right audience, the right stage. Her parents, my parents, Michael's fiancée, Daniel's wife, a handful of close friends. I invited them all under the guise of a family dinner. And when everyone arrived, I handed out sealed envelopes. Inside, every photo, every receipt, every timestamp, every word she'd whispered when she thought I wasn't listening. The room went silent. Claire's face drained of color. Her mother wept. Her father swore. Michael's fiancée stormed out, slamming the door. Daniel's wife stared at Claire with a hatred that could melt steel. And me? I just stood there, calm, collected, letting the truth echo louder than any accusation. For once, Claire had no script, no lie, no performance, just silence. She ran upstairs, sobbing. Michael followed, begging me not to ruin his life. Daniel never showed, coward that he was. But the damage was done. Her empire had collapsed. Her allies were gone. And I hadn't raised my voice once. That night, I slept alone in our bed for the last time. Claire curled up in the hallway, whispering apologies through the crack of the door. But I didn't listen, because I had already won. The house was quieter than it had ever been. After the family dinner, Claire hardly spoke. Her once constant buzzing phone sat face down on the counter, silent, useless. She drifted around the rooms like a ghost, eyes red, lips trembling, clinging to fragments of a life already gone. But the strange thing, I felt lighter, like someone had taken a weight off my chest I hadn't realized I was carrying for years. One night she finally cracked. She cornered me in the kitchen, tears streaming, her voice raw. "Daniel, please, don't do this. I made a mistake. I don't even know why. It's not what you think. We can fix this. We have to fix this." I looked at her, really looked. This wasn't the confident woman who once turned my doubts into insecurities. This was someone scrambling, desperate, terrified of losing the stability she'd taken for granted. And that's when I said it. "You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on us. You cheated on the version of me who trusted you, who defended you, who built a life with you. That man doesn't exist anymore, and without him, neither do we." She sobbed. She dropped to her knees, begging me not to leave, but I wasn't cruel. I didn't shout. I didn't spit venom. I simply picked up my packed bag, walked to the door and said, "This isn't punishment. This is freedom. For both of us." Then I left. The weeks after were messy. Divorce papers, lawyers, financial settlements. Claire tried every angle: apology, rage, threats, guilt. Nothing stuck. Michael called once, his voice shaking. He begged me not to ruin his future. I let him speak, then hung up without a word. Because some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. Daniel, he vanished. His wife took half of everything and more. His career tanked. I didn't need to touch him. The truth already had. And me? I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Quiet mornings with coffee, evenings with books instead of arguments, sleep without lies gnawing at the edges. For the first time in years, peace felt real. The last time I saw Claire was 6 months later. She spotted me in the grocery store, hair unkempt, makeup smudged, carrying a basket of frozen meals. She walked up, eyes pleading. "Daniel, do you ever think about us?" I smiled. "Yes, I think about how much stronger I am without you." And then I walked away, leaving her standing there in the aisle, clutching her basket like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Here's the truth no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't destroy you. It remakes you. It strips you down, burns you raw, and forces you to rebuild on stronger ground. And when you finally do, you realize the betrayal wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of a new one. Claire thought she could break me. Michael thought he could use me. Daniel thought he could replace me. They were all wrong, because I walked away not broken, but free. Thanks for watching this story until the very end. If it hit you, if it made you stop and think, subscribe to AEN Stories.